Disney Princess Cinderella, read by Amy Oakley. Once there was a kind and beautiful girl named Cinderella, who lived with her cruel stepmother and two selfish stepsisters, Anastasia and Drizella. Every morning, Cinderella told her little mouse and bird friends about her dreams. They're wishes my heart makes when I'm asleep. If I believe in them, someday they'll come true, she said. One day, an announcement arrived from the palace. The king was giving a royal ball in honor of the prince. Every maiden in the kingdom was commanded to come. Cinderella's stepsisters were thrilled. This was their chance to make the prince fall in love with them. Cinderella was excited too. Every maiden? She said. That means I can go too. Cinderella's stepsisters laughed. How could Cinderella expect to go to the ball? But her stepmother smiled slyly. You may go, Cinderella, she said, if you do all your work, and if you find something suitable to wear. All that day, Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters shouted orders at her. Cinderella's mouse and bird friends watched sadly. Cinderella was so kind to them. They wished they could do something for her. Poor Cinderella, said Jack. They keep her so busy, she never get her dress done. Then the mice had an idea. We can do it, they cried. Soon the mice and birds were happily snipping and stitching to make a lovely dress for Cinderella. When evening came, a tired Cinderella trudged up the stairs to her tiny attic room. She hadn't any time to find a dress for the ball. Now she would have to stay home. Suddenly, Cinderella saw the pretty gown her animal friends had made for her. Surprise! They cried. Cinderella could hardly speak. Oh, how can I ever? Oh, thank you so much, she said. Dressed and ready, Cinderella ran downstairs. Wait, please, wait for me, she called out. Anastasia and Drizella saw how lovely Cinderella looked and flew into a jealous rage. They ripped her dress to shreds. That's enough, girls, Lady Tremaine said at last. Don't upset yourselves before the ball. It's time to go. Cinderella was heartbroken. She ran into the garden weeping. It's no use. There's nothing left to believe in, she sobbed. Suddenly she heard a cheery voice say, Nonsense, child. If you didn't believe, I wouldn't be here, and here I am. Cinderella looked up and saw an older woman smiling at her. I'm your fairy godmother, the woman said. Dry your tears. We must hurry. With a wave of her wand, the fairy godmother turned a pumpkin into a coach and Cinderella's mouse friends into white horses. The fairy godmother hurried Cinderella to her coach. But, but, my dress, Cinderella said. Yes, yes, it's lovely, the fairy godmother said. Then she got a good look at Cinderella. Good heavens, child, you can't go in that. You need a dress. Well, just leave it to me. What a gown this will be. At the ball, the Grand Duke and the King watched the prince greet one maiden after another with a polite but bored expression. Then suddenly a hush fell over the ballroom. The prince looked toward the grand entrance. The loveliest girl he had ever seen stood on the steps. It was Cinderella. Prince Charming knew he'd found the girl of his dreams. May I have this dance? He asked. As the music played, the two waltzed around the ballroom and out into the garden. Soon enough, the castle clock began to chime. Oh, my goodness, Cinderella cried. It's midnight. I must go. Goodbye. As Cinderella ran away, the prince rushed after her. Wait, come back, he called. I don't even know your name. Cinderella darted through the ballroom and raced down the palace steps, losing a glass slipper on the way. Cinderella jumped into her coach and sped away. As the clock finished chiming, the spell broke. The coach became a pumpkin, the horses turned back into mice, and Cinderella was again dressed in rags. The next day the king sent out a royal proclamation. The girl whose foot fit the glass slipper would wed the prince. Cinderella couldn't hide her happiness from her stepmother. So, Cinderella is the girl the prince seeks, the stepmother said. Well, he'll never find her. And with that, she locked Cinderella in her attic room. Before long, the Grand Duke and a royal footman arrived with the glass slipper. The stepmother and stepsisters smiled their sweetest smiles and ushered them in. Both Anastasia and Drizella were eager to find some way to get their feet to fit the slipper. But though they pushed and shoved, neither of the stepsisters could squeeze a foot into it. Meanwhile, Cinderella's mouse friends struggled to get the key out of the stepmother's pocket without her noticing. Then they had to lug it all the way upstairs to the attic. This way, up, up, up with it. Gotta hurry, they cried. The mice slid the key beneath Cinderella's door. She was free. Downstairs, the Grand Duke knew neither stepsister was the girl he sought. Are there any other maidens in the household? He asked. There is no one else, your grace, said the stepmother. Just then Cinderella ran downstairs. Your grace, may I try it on? She called. As the footman carried the slipper to Cinderella, the stepmother tripped him and he fell. The slipper smashed into 100 pieces. The Grand Duke was horrified. Cinderella smiled and reached into her pocket. Perhaps I can help, she said. You see, I have the other slipper. The stepmother and stepsisters gasped. With a low bow, the Grand Duke slipped it onto Cinderella's dainty foot. It fit perfectly. Soon wedding bells rang throughout the kingdom. As the happily married couple rode away in the royal coach, Cinderella realized she had been right, after all. If you keep on believing, your dreams will come true. And they all lived happily ever after. The end.